All right. Our next speaker up will be Parag Shah. He's the Vice President of Center Store Omnichannel Merchandising for the Giant Company. Parag is a battle-tested entrepreneurial change agent and a business pioneer with deep expertise in grocery retail and merchant services. Throughout his career, he has transformed business and improved performance by challenging status quo and applying technology to accelerate impact. Known for business partnerships by breaking barriers and gaining consensus among diverse groups. Please join me in welcoming Parag Shah.
No, thank you very much for having me. First of all, I'm humbled that Udayan decided to put me in this lineup, right? And it's always great to be here at this event. It is so insightful. I learned so much. I walk away with so much more that I can apply in everyday life. So thank you very much. But more importantly, I'm honored to call Udayan and Tulika our friends. And it seems like I've known them for a long time, but it's not the case. It's just a few years ago we met, and they're just a great family, great human beings, and just like somebody to model after. So really, thank you very much, Udayan, for that. And you know, even though Udayan decided to put the title as Future of Grocery, you know, I'm by no means an expert in this space. I'm just a student. And what I'm going to share with you today is not like any path-breaking stuff or invention that's coming down the road. It's just what's happening in the industry. Because I think the pandemic really got a lot of people to talk about this industry, which was kind of docent for the better part of the century, right? So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. So is this the clicker? Okay. So a little bit about my organization. So I am affiliated with the Giant Company, which is one of the 19 brands of Ahold Delhaize. Ahold is one of the top 5 grocery retailers in the United States, but it is based out of Netherlands. 60% of the business is still in the US with the 5 brands, Stop & Shop, Food Lion, Hannaford, and the 2 giants. And also, if you live in New York City, there's a brand called Fresh Direct you may have been familiar with, which is part of a family. But along with other brands in the Europe and Indonesia area, you know, it's over an $80 billion company. So a little bit of a background on Ahold Delhaize. So the key highlights, right, I want to leave back today is what's happening with the economy, right? And, you know, even though we are not officially in recession, even though the slide says we are going to be in a mild recession, who knows what we are going to see in the next 12 months, right? It is unclear. We are going to be in uncharted territories. And what kind of effects that are going to have on the business is waiting to be seen. So what's really happening with the grocery business right now? And you have seen a lot of ups and downs in the business, you know, from the toilet paper shortage, and I was fascinated to hear Che Yuang's presentation from last year. But, you know, it has not been so volatile as it's ever been, right? And today, even though business is good, and if you follow the industry, you know, Walmart and Kroger and everybody's posting record profits, but it's really on the back of inflation. The volume is really declining, and it's just, in my opinion, a time bomb that's just waiting to go off anytime soon. And omni-channel shopping, right? So from a technology perspective, and I was talking to Vinod last night, and what I really said is, you know, prior to the pandemic, the grocery industry being a mature industry, there was a chisel and hammer by the tech companies really talking about, hey, what's happening in this space? You guys are tech mavens or not, right? Like, who wants to play in this space? And now all the tech companies are there with a sledgehammer, really, right? Like, everyone wants to play in the grocery space, given the volume, given the traffic, given the data that's involved. Last week alone, I was at grocery shop, and there were over 5,000 people there, right? It was a fascinating show, and to see what was happening and what they're really talking about. And the reason for that is the omni-channel shopping behavior. So whether you shop in store or whether you shop online with the retailer's platform, whether it is click and collect or delivery, or Instacart as a third party or DoorDash, it's all dependent, but everything flows into one funnel, right? And that's what we call it, an omni-channel shopping experience. And then what's happening with the technology piece, right? I just talked about, you know, how more and more tech companies are really coming to play in this industry. But what's fascinating is how retailers are really embracing this. how they're looking at data to give better shopping experience to the customers, and how they're evolving the overall technology within the store. So we'll talk a little more about it as we go in. So to give you a little bit of a chart and understanding, food really gets consumed in two different ways, right? At home and away from home. And you would expect that it's not a science, but it's really a big science. What's consumed in home is significantly different than what's consumed away from home. The milk that we buy, right, for consumption at home versus the milk or cream that's bought by the restaurants, very different. The processes are different, the back end's different, packaging's different, transportation's different. So go back about 24 months ago when COVID really hit and there were no supplies, and you would think, what happened, right? Everything is shut down. Why are people not repurposing the food away from home to in-home? It was not that easy. Literally, farmers were throwing away cream products because there was no consumption to be had in home, neither did they have packaging supplies. So what this chart really shows is the shift in business that really happened. On top, it's the at home, right? Consistently, you're seeing the growth. And even though away from home has rebounded from the lows of the pandemic year, it's far below, it's almost 300 basis points below what it was. And the goal, right, as people change their behavior and how they're consuming, I do not see anytime soon that it's going to catch up to what it was in pre-pandemic high. Again, this chart is really showing, consumptions in home versus away from home and how the changes have happened, right? And food service is down 2.5%, at home is up 2.5%. And even from the meal occasions, how they're consumed, from regular meals, which is breakfast, lunch, and dinner, versus in between and snacks, and what the changes are happening. And a big reason for this is the working behavior, right? And that has significantly changed. And you can see over here, the biggest growth really is happening from lunch. And why is that the case, right? People are working from home a lot more than they used to. They don't need to run to a cafeteria or go to a restaurant with their colleagues, right? That's one huge meal occasion that's shifted away from home. So that has a huge impact on the overall business. So a little bit about inflation and its impacts, right? And the food industry, for the most part, never witnessed for the 20 years before pandemic any major inflational curve, right? Except for the Great Recession. But that was a little bit of a shocker, and it recovered in a 2-year window. But if you follow all the publicly listed companies for 20 years, they literally reported a 1 or 2% inflation. And as a retailer, you would kill for 3 and 4 because you really made your numbers very easily if that really happened. But that was not the case. You really didn't see inflation for almost 2 decades. And then bang, it's a spike, right? Whether it is driven by demand, supply challenges, labor, raw materials, transportation, container shipping, yada, yada, yada. Like, I can keep on going on that one. That caused a significant spike. What's scary and what we are seeing right now is whatever the consumer price index is being reported versus what the producer price index is, there's a huge delta. We have CPG companies and brands still talking about price increases. Surabhi's in the room, she's the chief digital officer at Church & Dwight, and they are feeling the pain as an organization trying to meet the cost, and they still want to pass. From a consumer perspective, you are sitting at 16, 17, 18% inflation, which is unheard of, right? We have not seen it in this industry. So the pressure is real, and that is changing behavior. But before that, just to give you a little bit of an understanding how inflation's impacted restaurants versus how it's impacting grocers and merchants. Even though inflation at shelf when you go shopping is a lot higher than what you probably see when you look at your menu in a restaurant, the cost differential is so high, the impact is still not being seen at the same rate, but the inflation dollar value is still high in the restaurants. And customers are making behavioral changes because of it. I'll give you a quick example. In the frozen section, all of a sudden we started noticing that our sales of frozen appetizers started going up significantly. And we started investigating why that's the case, and it was not an easy answer. But what we arrived at is based on the shift in meal occasions and people ordering food at home, right? Uber Eats, DoorDash, other stuff, they were cutting down in what they were ordering. They were skipping the beverage, they were skipping the appetizer, and they were using their air fryers literally because it was getting so expensive because the ticket price for a family of 4, probably it cost you $70, $80. Now it's $140. They still want to eat outside, but they're going to cut back on something, right? So that's the trend we really started seeing over the last few months. And that's what's highlighted in this chart. If you look at food service, which is all food away from home, customers, the average eater check has gone down significantly by half year over year. So even though people are going out and ordering from restaurants and stuff, what they're ordering is significantly different than what's available. But at retail, you see the units and dollar value really is combined very much closely. So they're making that shift from away to at. And the other big trend that's happening, so if you really want to invest in stocks, this could be a good slide. Consumer behavior starts when inflation hits, and value channels typically gain on it. So dollar stores, mass merchants are starting to see a lot of benefit coming out of it, whereas grocers who rely a lot on full service activity, right? You have a butcher in the store, you have great produce, you have a deli counter, all that stuff adds cost to the system, which changes the profit mix, right? And that's not a value experience, it's more of a shopping experience, a service experience. But inflationary times puts pressure on all that stuff. So as the customers start shifting, they are not only shifting the channels they're buying in, but they're also the brands that they're buying in. So it's very critical for a brand to play in this space. If inflation is not your friend, then you have to really activate against your brand differently. But the one big change that we started noticing is with the success Walmart's having. Yes, they are our competitor, but Walmart's typical store experience was not great. And it's self-admitted, they would say that, right? Because of the variety of products that they offered, the way they offered it, they were never in full service food. The experience was not that great. But when they doubled down on their digital business, that experience became agnostic, right? So from a customer perspective, their web experience is superior to a lot of other retailers. And now you don't have to deal with the conditions, so you can buy your dry groceries easily on Walmart. And they started seeing the gains coming out of that. I thought that was significant, and that positions them well, and it's a threat to all the other competitors. But from an inflation perspective, the trends are real, and we're going to see what really happens. Also, the shift to private brands, like I mentioned, brands have to start activating in times of rough inflation, but private brands are seeing some unbelievable growth. The penetration is growing, their share is growing. $1 in $5 that is spent in a supermarket today is private brands. And private brands over the last 2 decades also have evolved from just a value play to a brand, right? You can connect with. So within our organization, we have a premier brand called Nature's Promise. And it doesn't look like it's a store brand, right? It is a premium brand that customers want to buy, and we see a high level of loyalty with that, and customers value the price discount they get versus the national brands. But this is what scares me the most. This is a forecast that some of the industry market research firms have done, right, as to what does inflation really look like. Today, what they're forecasting is the dollar inflation is about 8.5%, and volume is about down 2 to 3. This was a forecast. Right now, it's running about 7% down on volume, 17% up on dollars. It's a significant shift. And they're calling for another inflation round on anywhere from 3 to 4%. The problem is that this will be a stacked up inflation, and if volume really declines, you're going to start having real fears. In 1970s, we heard the term stagflation, right? So we are starting to feel that the growth is being derived out of just dollar value, but not volume growth. And that really is concerning a lot of companies right now, including ours, because our cost to do business is going up. If inflation is the only driver and we don't get volume and customer count, that will put a lot of risk to the organization's bottom line and their activation in their trading areas. Pivoting a little bit, this slide really talks about what's happening between in-store growth and digital growth. So in-store, overall, we are seeing about a 6% growth this year. But online clearly is driving all that growth that's coming with a 17%. But from a volume perspective, the store's down. Customers are changing behaviors. But from an online perspective, they're buying more baskets. They're finding the convenience. You know, the user experience, you know, the shoppable recipes, the shopping list, you know, all your app activities with innovation, all that is helping behavior. And what we see, the basket size is a lot larger for a customer online. Giving an example from a broad supermarket perspective, the average basket for in-store visit is about $40 to $45. For delivery is about $80 to $85. But for click and collect, it's $160. Because the physical barriers of shopping in store are eliminated online. So if you go to a store and you want to buy a case of water, a case of soda, paper towels, right? Your basket's full. You're out of space and you don't want to lug really two carts. But online, those barriers are eliminated and you see a larger basket. The good news is you also get a lot of loyalty from that. So it is very important to understand that data and engage the customer from that perspective. But all things are not same, you know, how customer really shops. You know, we talk about digital penetration in some industries as high as 30, 35, 40%. Within our industry, we are running at about 11, 12%. But even within that, there's a story of categories. You know, beer and wine, it's about 5. And Louis, I know you are doubling down on digital and that's going to continue to grow, which is going to be amazing, but there's a lot of runway in that space. Food is about 9%, but when you look at beauty care and personal care, about 40%, pet care, about 38%. Staggering numbers, right? So from a retail perspective, how do you really adopt in this world? How do you change your strategies in how you're meeting the customers? And how do you really activate online? So what do we see happening in future, right? So the tools are getting smarter, customers are getting smarter, retailers are investing in technology, into data, really to grow and engage the customer of the future. We are hoping that the pandemic-related behaviors will continue to stick, and we are engaging based on that and creating and curating different strategies so that we can get the maximum dollar and time that the customer spends with us. And the customer of the future really looks different, and they will have real different expectations from us. And one of the biggest area is what's happening with the younger population. They have a very different set of values and very different way of engaging. Now they are used to a post-pandemic era where they don't want to go back to work. And that changes their behavior, that changes how they shop, right? How do they engage with us? 1 in 5 families in America will be Hispanic within the next 10 years. And they're young also, so their expectations and how do retailers talk to them needs to evolve. And boomers are on a decline, right, from an age cohort perspective. So all this stuff is going to change how customers expect retailers to engage with them. So this is just a slide, we put together about when you really reimagine the store, what does it really look like, and what do the customers really want? And we came up with 4 big things. You know, the first one is inspiration and experience. As customers shift their behavior more to online business, and we expect almost a fifth of their shopping to happen online in the future. Today it is like almost 90%. We're expecting that to, in-store is 90%, we're expecting that to decline to 80%. But as they engage online, 4/5 of the business still is in store, and they expect the store to be different. They want a different experience when they are in. They have wholeheartedly told us they want much more fresh foods, much more prepared foods. They want to be educated in the store. They are relying on the grocer with their health and dietitian services that they become the connoisseurs of information and knowledge and make it easier to shop. They want a bigger and broader digital integration, right? They want it easier. They want their asset in their pocket, right? The smartphone to help them in their journey. They want the smartphone to really become a wayfinder in the store and make it easier for them to shop. And also deliver some great experiences while we are there through personalization, right? They want us to talk to them based on their shopping experiences and shopping needs, but also based on their lifestyle and life stage. And speed and convenience. I can foresee a day very soon in the future that there will be no cashiers in the grocery store. The whole just walk out technology that Amazon really pioneered and what's happening in that space is just absolutely fascinating. We put a few of those units, not from Amazon, we compete with them, so we would never do that, but we put a couple of their units in our cafeterias. And the way our associates are using it is just absolutely fascinating to learn from that. So part of the store experience is going to be, what happens at the shelf, digital activation. We are going to see a lot of different things being tried in this space where retailers are going to try bringing in the web grooming experience into the store, which is fascinating. Like, the whole curating that experience when the customer is there, giving them information, making it easier beyond the traditional shelf label. That's what's really going to get played out. And we have already started seeing a lot of different elements of that happen at retail. The age-old UPL labels are going away, digital's being refreshed, and the future will be personalization tied into it. How great would it be that if I, as a customer, walk by a certain item and it flashes a specific color, it tells me a recipe on my phone and also gives me a value at the same time. That is what technology companies are really talking about and really testing right now. And these are some of the examples that what we are seeing in how data and technology can help from a personalization perspective. There will be connection in really every part of the store, right? 5G technology and adoption as that grows. And we're already there today with this. And that's going to make it very easier from a connectivity perspective and using things to life, right? We are talking about QR codes. And last night, Surbi and I believe Susie were talking about this, right? Nobody cared about QR codes, but post-pandemic, it became a thing, right? Menu cards, nobody are using that. It's all on QR codes, right? And Coinbase at Super Bowl kind of changed a lot, right? And the amount of activation that brought. And we were playing with QR codes pre-pandemic to bring knowledge to the customer because it was part of the blockchain understanding. Now, it's a whole different game. You can really personalize based on that. So that's the evolution, really, technology helps us. Click and collect, people keep on talking about the online business, how customers engage, but I feel click and collect is going to be the biggest one. BOPIS, depending on the industry you're in, what you call it, that's how customers will want it. They want to place their order with it and want it fulfilled within 2 hours. They'll come up to the store, curbside, pick up in store, and they're going to fulfill it that way. But the huge opportunity with click and collect is, from a grocer's perspective, is impulse. Almost 10% of the sales are impulse in store today, right? How do you recreate that online? So that presents a challenge, right? And typically the impulse categories are the profitable categories too, right? So that's going to be the future, how technology can really help us. And retail media, and I think Surbi is a much better expert to talk about this than I am, but to give you a very Cliff Note version on what's happening with retail media is, retailers realized, thanks to Amazon, that they are sitting on trove of customer data, and then they can monetize it. And rather than wanting to just repurpose the money that brands would give them, they started going after the media dollars that were going to agencies and TV and radio, and everybody is trying to make this play with the brands that they want to share their data, but for a cost. But the reality of this is going to be the retailers and the brands that figure out using the data the best to personalize the shopper experience are going to be the ones that are going to win. So there's a huge impact right now in the industry, impacting a lot of different industries and companies with what's happening on retail media. So that's my presentation. I will take any questions the group has. Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Obviously, in terms of like the different markets you're serving with a diverse portfolio, when you look at a fresh direct, you're going to operate that very differently than you're going to be an in-store.
Yes.
And with the change in the economy, the change in consumer behavior, how do you balance those two? Because I'm sure it can feel like you're choosing the two sometimes.
It's a great question, and I don't know if anybody has the right answer to it. I wish I did, right? So, but what we are trying to prioritize is, what is the customer really telling us? Customers behaving in a certain way and how they engage. To just give you a little bit of sneak peek from an online perspective, a customer is making a choice of using Instacart as an example, even though they are priced higher than the grocer buying directly with them. And I was talking to Vinod last night, and a couple of big reasons for that are, even though they are expensive, their user interface is excellent, and their speed, and what they are able to do in last mile, right? You can get an order as quick as 30 minutes. So that's one element, right? That the customer is telling us that they want that experience. The other one is that they want a convenience of shopping in store as well as online. Click and collect as an example. You have to really play in both. I think the challenge is going to be having a clear channel strategy as to what do you stand for. Typically, retail, at least in the food business, really struggled. They never worried about a channel strategy. The brands had channel strategy because they were dealing with mass marketeers, club stores, online stores, and grocers. But now for us, the customer is engaging differently. So you have to have a real and deep understanding of what the customer is engaging, and then prioritize your investments based on that, where you're going to have a return on investments, right? So to Jay's point earlier, right, what is it that's going to drive your P&L? Because we are publicly listed companies, so we have goals to meet, so that's one element. And then what's the investments that you have to make to continue meeting the needs of the customer? Yep.
I have a quick question. So you had a slide about different categories, and pet was growing, I think,
Yeah.
38% online.
Yep.
I'm curious, what do you think is driving that versus other center store categories? And you're doing center store,
Yep.
right? So what's driving pet to grow so fast online, where other center store, non-perishables aren't?
Yep. So actually, I will go even further because it resonates with you, baby, right? You and Aaron are in that space, right? Yes, yeah. No, but both the categories are behaving a lot, and Surbi plays in that space as well with one of their brands. What I would say, I think Chewy.com and Diapers.com had a huge impact early on in how they engage the customer. And also the customer shopping transaction is very different. If the mom needs the diaper, or you need a specific dog, like pet food, a large dog food bag, right? You're shopping a little differently. And also the variety when it comes to pet food is huge and wide. And as grocers, not all brands are available to us. Very channel specific in pet specialty online. So that's one of the reasons why those categories are doing extremely well. And what was not on one of my slides, vitamins as an example. 50% of the vitamin business is done online. Even though when you think like Vitamin Shop and GNCs have stores all over the place, right? Half of their business is still online. It's fascinating because customers are engaging differently. The shelf is not delivering the message that the categories demand to.
Can I add to that, Parag?
Yes.
I'm passionate. So I work in the litter category, cat litter,
Yeah.
and I work in pet food and baby also. So these are some of the least switchiest categories. When people like a brand or a product for their baby and pet specifically, for some reason they might change baby food but not pet food and pet litter. So they won't switch. And think of picking a 40-pound bag and lugging it through the store versus it getting delivered on a subscribe and save via Chewy, Amazon, anything else. That is why you see 38%. That is penetration. That's 40% that happens online.
Yeah.
So I'll say.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
We have time for one more question.
With the high inflation and
Yeah.
Gen Z's making up such a high part of the population, and then I guess liking to eat out, how is the fast foods channel? You did store and you did restaurants, but you didn't
Yeah.
separate fast food.
Yeah, QSRs are doing very well actually.
Unit sales and gross sales,
Yeah.
both, I would assume. are
Both.
growing.
Because
So they're bucking the trend.
they are bucking the trend, and it was surprising because we thought that was not the case. From what I heard, last McDonald's was reporting some great numbers, and even some other chains that are coming up are doing well, which is surprising. So they definitely are bucking the trend, but they're also passing significant price increases because they were having a hard time getting labor, and Exactly, and they're passing it along. But I think the average transaction size and the inflation impact is less when you have a $7 transaction versus you have a $120 transaction. I think that's playing a little bit into it. Tausif, last one.
Thank you so much for giving the opportunity and what a lovely statistics presentation. Always, it felt like you were telling the story of my house. The question is, I think now you gave the example of Walmart, right? With that BOPUS click and collect, they have eliminated a disadvantage that they had, which was essentially the purchase experience in-house. So how is now that essentially was your advantage? So how are we translating that superior experience which your brand is known for into BOPUS?
Yeah, so two things. One, your user experience has to increase, significantly improve using technology and capabilities, better content, better search, better navigation, make it easy for the customer to find, and also personalization, right? Meeting the needs. So that's one piece. Second part of it is fulfillment. Make sure your order is ready in time and in full. Very important part of it, right? So customer doesn't want surprises, but also doesn't want surprises on substitution as an example, which is a big part of it, right? When they are in store, they can decide if there's certain product not available and they can switch. But online, if someone else is shopping for them, it's a very difficult interaction. Instacart's done well, they text you and they talk to you, but retailers have some evolution to do in that space. Okay, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Parag.
Thank you.